Most bankers aren't ready to help you until after their third cup of coffee. But with Central National Bank's after-hours service, you don't have to wait for the bank lobby to open to get help. You can contact us from 6 to 8:30 in the morning or from 5 to 10 in the evening, and we'll connect you to a real, live, local person who can answer questions and fix problems 7 days a week. Bank different. Bank Central. Central National Bank. Member FDIC.
I tried to fight all through the night, deep in the heart of Texas. The trailer park is nice and dark, deep in the heart of Texas. Cat drinks his brew and he spits his chew, deep in the heart of Texas. The TV blares but no one cares, deep in the heart of Texas. Here we go!
Hey everybody, welcome to another Friday episode of Blah. It's going to be me, Rusty, with
Mason.
Mason. What's up, Mason? So what do we got today, Mason? You're the fill-in for Mike today. So what do we got, man? What's on the agenda for today?
Talking about Cotton Hill.
Old Cotton Hill, man.
I'm gonna give him some respect. He was what was his rank?
Oh, he was for his
Colonel
name,
Cotton Hill. Yeah.
For his full name, it would be Colonel Cotton Lyndall Hill.
Yeah.
Born September 1st, 1927, died November 11th, 2007.
His dad hated him. Who the hell names their kid Cotton?
Yeah. I'm not sure. And then Lyndall being the middle name, I'm not sure. That is.
I could look that off where that came from, but it's funnier if I don't.
It's a nickname, but we don't get the actual nickname, so it's then just Cotton.
Yeah. So early life and military history. He was born around 1927, making him about 70 in the first season of the show. So he's in his 70s with a 30-year-old wife. That's cool. In season 4, episode Cotton Comes Marching Home, which we'll be covering soon, he states himself to be 71. Little is known about his childhood other than that he started out with a gun at an early age, according to Hank in the episode How to Fire a Rifle, without really trying. That he attended Fort Burke when he was very young. We do know that in a good episode.
Yeah, which Fort Burke, for those of you who don't know, is the episode where Bobby is kind of sent for like a military camp kind of thing, and he goes to this hole or whatever inside of this military camp, and inside of there was Cotton's name with like 5 days etched into the wall. And
no, it was 2 days.
It was
Bobby
2 days,
beat
sorry.
him with a whole day.
So Bobby stayed in the hole for 3 days, and all he did was hibernate like a bear and slept the whole time. Yeah, that was a great episode. That's one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah, I can't wait for you guys to get to that one.
Yeah, I can't either. That's a really good one.
Apparently, Cotton's mother died giving birth to him, as he exaggerates in Death Picks Cotton.
Which is the episode where he dies.
No one knows anything about Cotton's father except he may have been German, as Peggy tells Bobby in the episode Tears of an Inflatable Clown. And the only time Cotton even himself refers to his father during the entire series is when he shouts at Hank, "You ain't my daddy, I'm your daddy." So it's not even really a...
You ain't my daddy, I'm
your daddy. He also has an unnamed brother who is Dusty's father.
Dusty's father, Dusty Hill. So, again, for those of you who are watching along with us, we ain't got that far yet. But eventually we meet some of Hank's family members, and his family is Dusty Hill and of the what's her name? ZZ Top fame. Sorry.
Yeah,
so it's Dusty Hill from ZZ Top ends up being one of Hank's cousins.
We know, this is based on Wikipedia, based on his uniform, and when he goes to Japan, he has the Medal of Honor, a Purple Heart, and the American Campaign Medal. I don't know what you did to earn those medals, but I know you
Name
saved
them
people
again.
and you killed
okay,
people.
so the Congressional Medal of Honor is something courageous above all else. The American Campaign Medal was given to, it was created by President FDR, and it was intended to recognize those who had performed military service in, I imagine it was probably for World War II. So it's just a service medal saying, I was in this campaign. So every campaign has a medal. So if you say, hey, I was in Iraq, and people are looking at your your medals and your ribbons and stuff on your uniform, they have campaigns for each one. So if you say, well, I was in Vietnam, and they're looking at which they call your stars and bars. So if they're looking at all your stuff and they look down and they say, well, I don't see the Vietnam ribbon, they know that you're a liar and weren't in Vietnam. So they could tell by your insignias and your ribbons what your rank was, where you served. If you actually served in any of those combat zones, you'd have a medal from it. So that's what that is. So then again, we go through Cotton's stuff. So a Purple Heart means that he was hurt in the line of duty.
Which he did. He lost his
shins.
He also has a Silver Star, which he keeps in the VFW.
Yep.
And
which
then
is Silver Star is the Medal of Honor is like the ultimate sacrifice in the line of combat, and you do something that's just like above and way beyond what is the Call of Duty.
Well,
the
dude,
Silver
I know.
Star
I played Medal of Honor when I was a kid.
Yeah. So the Silver Star is a high commendation for somebody who's in a combat zone or whatever, but it is like a step below them. It's like tiered, you know what I mean? So it's like, oh, you're still kick-ass, but not as kick-ass as what a Medal of Honor recipient is, you know?
And then he has a third-class Legion of Honor, apparently the highest award given by the French government, who gave it to a select handful of American troops for the service in World War II. So he was in Europe at some point.
Yes, he was definitely in the European theater at some point.
Yeah, he on Wikipedia, they say he has a tendency to exaggerate his service in the war. For example, in episode Cotton's Plot, which we'll get to soon, he states he killed Nazis in Munich on April 30th and Japanese on May 2nd in Okinawa, which is maybe it's possible.
No, it wasn't.
I doubt it.
It was highly impossible to be in Munich in World War II. It was highly impossible.
To be in Europe and then also in Japan.
And in Japan within a week's time of each other. But it also says here that in a 6th season episode that he was attached to the 77th Infantry Division, which served in World War I and World War II, and they're headquartered out of Fort Dix, New Jersey. And it was the 77th Regional Readiness Command was disestablished in 2008. So the division is now called the Statue of Liberty Division, and from what I read here, is they're based in where does it say here? Right there in New Jersey still. So apparently they're still in New Jersey. So that's pretty cool. There you go, some recent military information. And then there was a number of war trophies that you could see in various episodes too. So he had a Prussian Pickelhaube, which a Pickelhaube is the spiked pith helmet that you see from the Prussian and German armies in World War I. How they would have the helmet with the spike. I don't know if you're cognizant of any of that Prussian stuff, but that was a Prussian war cap. And then another one of his, because that Prussian helmet is what he used to cut Hank's hair. He used the spike on the dill to do Hank's bowl cut. I don't know if you remember that or not. It was in a few episodes where you could see it.
Right,
and
I do remember that.
He had Hitler's canoe. So in that particular
he claims it's
episode
Hitler's
too,
canoe. There's no way it actually is his canoe.
Yeah. That's what I was gonna say. He because like you said, he exaggerated his war stories, and then Artie here says too. Peggy called him out on it, and even told the VFW board, giving out cemetery plots whenever they were trying to do all his war stuff and see what was actually true. And one of the things that he commonly does too is he exaggerates his war service, but he also expresses his dislike a lot for veterans of the Vietnam War.
Yeah, I remember that episode. That was a rough one.
Well,
because that was the war that America's lost at that time, I guess.
Yeah. So, well, not only was it the war that America lost at the time, but the sentiment around the wars was completely different because World War II was a necessary war, whereas Vietnam wasn't really necessary to send Americans to go die for that.
Yeah.
So there was a lot more contention about the Vietnam War, and there was a lot more acknowledgement of the PTSD and stuff. I know, fortunately for me, I was old enough to have met a fair amount of World War II vets in my youth, and to be able to like talk to them and get their perspective of the war at that time in America, also their perspective of what it was like to participate in that war. And
were
the
soldiers
reason why,
more celebrated? Because I know after Vietnam there was a
lot of celebration.
very mixed bag. Some people were happy they were back. Most people were not. In
there was more
World War
of
II, was there more? I feel like there was more celebration.
There was more celebration, but the world they were coming back to was much different than the world that they were coming back to after the war in Vietnam. You got to think the war after they were coming back, it was a huge period in time and success, not only for white families, but it was a success for black families as well, because it was the first time in a lot of black people's lives, World War II, and one as well. Both wars have a period
and for
of
women
this,
too,
and for women as well. So both wars have this period of where black communities, minority communities now had money to be able to go buy homes. And it's where you get the Great White Flight after World War II, where you have the creation of the suburbs and stuff like that, because now black families in inner cities could afford homes in white communities, and white people were like, oh, well, we don't want this. So of course they move further out kind of thing. So so we're in a different sentiment. So yeah, the sentiment around Vietnam, it was, especially even for World War II vets, it's like in World War II, they went for the duration. Like I have a cousin who came home. He was gone for 4 years, like a really old cousin, like one of my dad's cousins, not mine. So when he was in World War II, he was there for the whole war.
Basically,
he was
once
in
America
Europe
got
for
involved.
4 years.
Jesus.
He was there from the storming of Normandy till they walked all the way to Berlin, kind of thing. You know, he was there for that entire campaign. And he didn't get to go home. There wasn't no, go home, for leave or any of that. The most he got for leave was to come away from the combat zone for a day or two and then right back to the front, kind of thing. So there was a lot of, I guess, tension between the World War II vets and the Vietnam vets, because Vietnam vets, they had the luxury of coming home after a year of being in combat. They could come home for leave before they had to go back, whereas they were there in war for 4 solid years. Yeah. And PTSD wasn't as recognized when they came back either as it is now.
It wasn't even that well recognized in the 60s either, though.
No, not
70s.
Not as... It was more clinically defined after Vietnam. Like in World War I and World War II, it was just shell shock.
Oh, yeah.
At first, it was shell shock. Then it was combat fatigue, and then it was PTSD. Yeah. So it took a while for them to come up with like clinical response to it. So there was no clinical response for World War I vets at all. World War II vets, there was very limited, clinical response to it, and then there was a wider clinical response. Not that it was effective or anything, as we could see. There is limited effect in anything to do with mental health in the United States. So
I mean, seeing someone get their brains blown out, you can't really ever just get rid of that image.
You can't, and that's what it's all about is mitigating the mental health risks and stuff like that those people have to deal with. And, of course, we don't do a very good job at that. So let's continue on with
let's go on a
a
lighter topic.
Yeah, let's continue with cotton here. So it goes through...
his alleged military history.
Yeah, his alleged military history. So I'll quickly just run through this real fast, and then we can get to his relationships and his personality and all that. So apparently, so Cotton says these are his alleged rundown of his combat history. So he was apparently on the Solomon Islands. He was ordered to retake an airfield, but they were pinned down by Japanese gunfire, and this is where he gets his I killed 50 men thing from. So he apparently sneaked into a 55-gallon barrel of sake, held his breath until the Japanese got drunk. He jumps out, spits it all into a Zippo lighter, hibachis the whole squad. Then apparently he was at Guadalcanal. In the episode Yankee Hanky, he references that he and Stinky were on Guadalcanal and it rained for 17 days.
That one I can believe.
I can believe that one. And then he says he was at Anzio, where they had caught the Krauts with their pants down and their snitchel exposed. And they had taken the beach by noon and taken the town by nightfall. The next one would have been him in Normandy with a 50-pound ice cream maker on his back. The next one would have been Saipan, where he led a platoon of men through the jungles of Saipan. The next one would have been Guam, where he crawled through a Minecraft. What the hell? He crawled through a mine. I was gonna say a Minecraft minefield. I don't know why I was gonna say that at all. Okay, he crawled through a minefield to retrieve General MacArthur's corncob pipe. Said that he was in the Philippines. Said that he was in Iwo Jima, spent 2 weeks under a pile of bodies. And then there was another one where he said he and Topsy used a bayonet technique to get a kamikaze. The next one says that he was in Munich, but this is the one that's contested heavily, is because he couldn't be in the Pacific Theater and in the Atlantic Theater at the same time. The next one was a POW camp at an unknown place and unknown time in Japan. They put him in a bamboo rat cage where he had to eat rats, and he had to let the last one live so he could eat its droppings. He called it jungle rice, and it tasted fine, apparently. And they said that eventually he was so skinny that he could slip through the bars and strangle the guard with a string made of rat tails and ran to safety. So he became skinny enough to slip through the bars, forms a rope out of a rat tails, and chokes the guy and then leaves. He also learned how to stop his heartbeat so they would stop torturing him for a moment. And they claimed that he only cried when the Japanese tore off his fingernails.
You know, I don't like cotton, but when you read that, you know, it kind of makes sense how he turned out the way he did.
It makes sense because there's a lot that come from that baby boomer generation, or the greatest generation. Sorry, not the baby boomer generation, but the people from his generation. That a lot of them were cynical asshole people because they went through 4 years of war. Some of them were in combat zones for 4 years of their young life. Imagine being 17 or 16, because a lot of these guys, it was voluntary. World War II, a lot of it was, a lot of it was people went to go stop the scourge of communism and fascism. They signed up for it because it was a reality. Because if you didn't sign up for it, eventually it would have got to a point where the war would be in the United States. And up to this point, the only war on United States soil since the Revolution and the War of 1812 and all the little tiny wars at the beginning was the Civil War. That was the biggest loss of life in American history up to this point. So
plus Pearl Harbor,
really
and all that, fire up everyone's ass.
Yeah. And this is even before Pearl Harbor, the sentiment was don't get involved. Nobody wanted to be involved in it. We could have been involved in World War II way sooner. It probably would have changed the whole trajectory of the war, but we weren't in a war position. We were making refrigerators. We were making new cars. We were making radios. We were worried about the progress that was happening at the time. And World War II kind of helped push that progress with a lot of the invention of the technology and stuff that came out of World War II. And that's why you had this period of huge economic success between the 50s and 70s for all walks of life of American life. Yeah, there was still a lot of roadblocks in the way for minorities and stuff like that, but this was an unprecedented time even for minorities in economic growth. It changed the playing field. It created a middle class for the minority, whereas before your only middle class mostly at this time was all white middle class. So I think that was one of the plus sides to this economic development, and then it ended in the 60s and the late 60s, early 70s with urban renewal projects. So, this area.
He air quoted that just so everybody knows.
Because we live in a place where a lot of that history has been tried to be whitewashed of this economic growth after World War II, and then how it stunted the minorities as soon as they started this urban renewal stuff, so.
Watch us fight all through the night, deep in the heart of Texas.
But yeah, back to Cotton Hill. So we've kind of, that was kind of his military rundown or whatever. So now with his relationships, I'm not going to go into too much detail with it because there's a lot of detail that we could talk about. I'm going to talk about his first love and the reason
I think his
why
only love, honestly.
Yeah, his only love. And the reason why I think he resents Tilly and Hank so much, honestly.
It's because he was forced to go back to the States and leave Michiko.
Not necessarily that he was forced. So
they didn't
he
make
has an affair in Japan while he's in the Pacific Theater.
After his shins are blown off.
After his shins are blown off with a Japanese nurse who nurses him to health called Michiko. And he then has a son also with this woman named Junichiro.
And no idea about.
He tried to stay as much as he could, But then he ended up having to leave, and then he didn't even know anything about the kid or anything like that. So
Even though-
the clip
even though
shows him getting clubbed.
Yeah.
You know, the flashback of him trying to stay in Japan actually shows him being clubbed and dragged onto a boat.
Yeah, I don't know why that's
to get
always
out of
funny
there.
to me.
Yeah, I think it's funny too.
But also, I think it's always kind of funny, and she has a point in that episode. There really was nothing stopping him from just going back.
well,
I mean, I don't know what
don't really
Japan's
know if
like
he
border was like after World War II. I know
Yeah.
it wasn't great, but
Well, I don't know if he was in. I can't remember if he was married to Tilly or not at this point.
he was not. No way he could have been.
Yeah, and if he was married to Tilly at this point, like I said, I can't remember that part. So
No,
if he
because
is or
Hank's not
isn't,
born
somebody
until
could tell us.
Hank's not born until
Hank's
the,
not born, but I don't know if they're in a relationship or not
60s.
before, because they might have already been in a relationship before Hank comes along. And Hank's like, I think he's like mid to late 50s. I thought was his birthday. I don't know exactly.
That's the one thing they never actually gone into detail,
Yeah.
as far as I could tell, how he actually got involved with Tilly.
Yeah, so we do find out Hank has 3 kids throughout the whole show. He has the oldest being the half Japanese son Junichiro. Then you have Hank, and then you have good Hank GH.
I've always thought
which he
that
has with Dee Dee, which was also a nurse that he met.
he has a thing for nurses.
He has a thing for nurses.
I always
Candy
imagined
Striker.
that Tilly was just a maybe. It's not trying to anything against it. I feel like Hank was a result of a one night stand. They just never told him.
I don't even think it was a one night stand. I think the thing between him and Tilly was he come back from the war. If they were together already, I feel like if they were, like I can't remember, so I'm gonna talk about the hypothetical of both. So if they weren't already together, I feel like when he came back from the war, he no longer has shins. He pulled from he settled for the first woman that would show him any attention, because even though he was a handsome man, he was a man with no shins.
Yeah.
So he was a man that was physically limited by his disability. And at this time in America, physical limitations is not something that women were they wanted a man who was able to take care of them, because women at this time, there was not a lot of there wasn't a huge working class. This is the beginning of the working women's class after World War II. So at this time, there's not a big working class for women. So I feel like she wants the traditional life. He wants a traditional life. He attaches himself to a woman who will give him a traditional life. And eventually he comes to resent this woman. And eventually he comes to resent the child that he has with this woman, because all he can think about his whole life at this point was
Michiko.
Michiko.
Yeah.
So that's I think that's a part of
And
this.
also just bitterness, just having lost his shit. I don't think he ever. I don't know if it's bitterness. I mean, you'd be pretty bitter losing your shins in a war, and he probably wanted more than he ever actually had.
Yeah, and then not only the bitterness with losing your shins, there's a lot of pains and stuff that come with that, physical and mental pains that come with that, but also the physical and mental pain of not knowing whether the woman that you loved, not knowing anything about or what that could have been. As an old man, he's just sitting there and he's thinking, like, damn, like, I never got to be with the love of my life. Nobody ever amounted to that love, and he never was able to replace it, no matter how he tried.
Because he doesn't love Dee Dee.
And I don't think he loves Dee Dee.
He cares for Dee Dee.
I think he cared for Tilly. I just think that a lot of the issues that Cotton has, again, goes back to his service, and it goes back to him truly loving the Japanese nurse Michiko and never getting to express that love or to grow it or see where it would go, fertilize it, and see where that love would go. So after the war, it says here that he becomes an asbestos installer.
Oh yeah, he does. He mentions that in the episode when he.
So a blue collar guy, just a blue collar worker, installs asbestos in apparently a living bowling alleys in every public school in Hamlet County, and
what do you?
Eventually, he does go back to. Eventually, he does get to go back to Japan and reconcile the love, learn about his son, and.
Why do you think he? Sorry, I keep cutting you off. So.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
Why do you think he doesn't like Peggy?
Why doesn't he like Peggy? Because
is it just because he took Hank away from him?
No, I think he doesn't like Peggy because Peggy doesn't really. She's not a submissive woman. In his mind, a woman is supposed to be submissive, and
Tilly was when they were married,
like Tilly was when they were married, or whatever.
And Dee Dee is.
Or Dee Dee is submissive to a point of ignorance. Dee Dee is, but I think that's what a lot of it is. He just
she'll tell him how much she doesn't like him.
Yeah, he just Peggy is vocal in the household. She speaks when not spoken to. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's part of his misogynistic character's bit. Yeah, Peggy does suck. That's what Jordan said, because Jordan's the one that gave us the plush. She said because Peggy sucks. Yeah, Peggy
Thank you,
sucks.
Jordan. I don't know if Jordan can hear me.
Yeah. She should be able to hear you. But Peggy does suck. That's why he doesn't like her. But if Peggy didn't suck, I feel like one of the reasons why he wouldn't like her is because she is a self-serving, independent woman.
Yeah. The good news is, the one benefit, he does love Bobby. I don't know what it is about Bobby that he loves. That sounds horrible.
It's his grandson.
I love Bobby.
It's his grandson. Well, no matter how much as somebody who kind of has seen the dynamic between a grandfather and a grandson, and remembering how my dad was with me, it's different. Like, my dad gave me hell for the stuff that my son could just run away with, So I feel
I've seen that, that Gordon Ramsay meme.
You know your mistakes. You get as a grandparent, you've already made all the mistakes as a parent. You already have had the chance to reflect on all the mistakes you've made. You already had a chance to look where you made mistakes. So when your grandkid comes along, you're able to adjust for the course, and correct all that stuff with the grandkid and do it differently.
I always thought it was just because it's a kid you don't actually have to take care of. You can just actually have all the fun moments with. It reminds me of that Gordon Ramsay meme. You know that one where parents with their kid, you fucking donkey. Grandparents with grandkids. Oh, you sweet precious thing, come here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That is nice that he does love Bobby, though. And I guess there's not really much else to say about that.
No, there's not. So
it's always funny how all of Hank's friends always refer to him as Colonel. Like, they know, they can see how much of a dick he is.
Well, all of them have been around him since they were kids.
Yeah.
So they've all been to camps and everything like that with him, and
reverence.
They just know how he is. It's a reverence, and what it does is it shows a blanketed reverence that a lot of people have with our military. A lot of people have a blanket reverence, like you can't even utter a word in judgment of any military branch in some southern communities, even though that's not the case. Not everybody that serves in the military is a good and honorable person. Not everybody that goes into the Army and fights in combat zones does the right thing. I know a lot of combat veterans, and I know a lot of people that have been in the military currently or past service, and they'll tell you the same thing. Just because somebody serves in the military is not a reason to tip your hat at them and say thank you for your service, because the guy that you thank him for his service, he could go home and beat his wife every night and molest his children.
Or he could have
I'm not saying that's the case, but they said that it's ignorant, and this is coming from veterans. This is not me. This is direct quotes from friends that I have that have served. So this is not my opinion. This is their opinion. And what they have said to me and relayed to me, that they think it's ignorant of people to give a blanketed respect for military, because the guy that you see at the mall that you say thanks for your service might not even be a combat vet. He might just be some dude who's wearing a hat that has Army on it, or something like that. So you don't even know if you're saying thank you to a guy who's stolen valor, who's getting a free meal at somewhere that he doesn't even deserve. And then I have a friend who actively avoids anything paraphernalia-wise that says the military on it, and he served for over a decade, but he makes an active effort to not have people recognize that he was in the service, because he doesn't like that. He says nobody thanks the guy at Subway who's making the sandwich. Nobody thanks the guy who's at the car wash that's, scrubbing your car down. He said it's a job that he chose to go do, just like anybody chooses to go do a job.
This wasn't the Vietnam War where you were drafted. You had to go. Yeah.
He says that in an all-volunteer Army, he said that a lot of the people that volunteer are volunteering for
money,
personal reasons, not for the act of joining to be, an honorable thing, just joining to join because they don't have anything better going in their life.
I will say one thing: if you did serve in the military and you did have to go overseas to do stuff, I still thank you.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. Like I said, that wasn't
or
my
even just
opinion.
still join the military.
Of others.
thank you, but like also I'm not gonna brown nose you just because you served.
Yeah. No, I do recognize everybody that serves in any capacity, whether it
I know you
whether
were.
it be a teacher, a EMS worker, a paramedic, like anybody that serves the public in any way, military otherwise. I respect all of those people, and anybody that serves the public, whether it be your Starbucks barista, whether it be your McDonald's window worker. I respect everybody equally because we're all have our own struggles in life, and we're all working to the same goal, and that is to feed ourselves and survive.
Especially when they're doing a job, like the Starbucks people, especially when they're doing a job I would not want to do in 1,000 years.
I wouldn't do
that
it
job
1,000
fucking
years.
sucks.
And I love coffee, so I definitely hats off to all the Starbucks employees of the world, as well as
or anyone who works at McDonald's, like you said, because McDonald's. Say what you want. There's a reason that line is always packed.
As controversial as that might sound, we do appreciate everybody's service no matter what. But like I said, Cotton Hill, crazy guy. So to wrap it all up, I guess we'll discuss his death a little bit. So Fox actually published an obituary around Cotton's death. So I'm going to read his obituary, and I think the obituary sums up the episode and the man very well here. So Cotton Hill, aged 84, World War II veteran, died Sunday in a Texas VA hospital. Hill suffered from several injuries ranging from 4 rusty bullets lodged in his back and 1 in his heart from his military service, a broken hip and torn ligaments in his ankle knees, to an infection in his esophagus and severe burns caused by a freak shrimp accident that occurred earlier this week at Tokiyaki's Japanese restaurant. Hill leaves behind sons Hank Hill and G.H., daughter-in-law Peggy Hill, grandson Bobby Hill, ex-wife Tilly, second wife Dee Dee, first love and former Japanese lover Michiko, and illegitimate Japanese son Junichiro, and nephew Dusty Hill of band ZZ Top. So there you go. So in season 13...
season 12.
Is it season 12?
Season 12, yeah.
In season 12, season 12 is where he dies, but in season 13, there's a particular episode where Hank receives from Dee Dee a box of Cotton's personal possessions and a list of his embarrassing last requests.
Oh, yeah.
Cotton also leaves Hank a rude message on a tape recorder telling Hank that he wanted all the embarrassing requests to be completed by him. Peggy did not want Hank to fulfill all of Cotton's wishes, but Hank said that fulfilling his last request was one of the best gifts he had ever received from his father. So Hank completed every one of the requests, which... I
do remember that episode, yeah.
Hank felt like this was his last way of just humiliating one last time kind of thing. So the last request Cotton had was to have his cremated remains flushed down a bar toilet that General Patton once used. Such practice was also a tradition with other people in Cotton's platoon, and all of his deceased war buddies were also flushed down the same toilet. Hank and his friends respectively honored the request, flushed his remains down the toilet, resulting in the toilet being plugged and the bar owner demanding Hank pay for the damage. So the result of this was Peggy claimed at the end of the episode that even though Cotton is dead, he will always find a way to disrupt their lives. So if that says anything about Cotton, there you go. So that's it. What do you think about it?
It was crazy. It was just a crazy concept of just killing Cotton off in the first place, especially in your 12th season.
Well, it's crazier than summer quests people get. Some people like to be their ashes to be sprinkled on a weed blunt and smoked. So, I feel like anybody that chooses to have their ashes, whatever they choose to have done with them, I think you should fulfill that one last request, even if it is as ridiculous as flushing it down a toilet.
Cotton
Hill
is a complex guy, complex character. And so that's really the best way to
very complex.
Close this out. It's just
he's the devil and an angel.
Yeah,
he's the devil and an angel. You got your shins back, is what Hank said when he died, apparently. But
if he went to heaven,
if there is a heaven.
Yeah.
There you go. So we appreciate you guys hanging out with me and Mason for a Friday episode. Again, be on the lookout for Animation Conversation. That's going to be a great one. We're going to try to involve everybody in the studio in that one and get a lot of cross fertilization going with that. It's going to be a great podcast. Also, if you want to go check out anything else at Rogue Mates, you can go to roguemedianetwork.com. They plenty of shows to check out. One of the best, independent networks in Texas. A lot of great independent podcasters. Give us a try. Give us a check out. if you want to find out some more stuff for Bois, you can check us out on Linktree, linktr.ee/BWAAAKOTH. And Mason, I know you have something to plug here, so go ahead and plug your show, buddy.
Oh, yeah. It's Bibliophobia. I talk about books and stuff, mostly short stories and some books so far. It's having a lot of fun. Allison and a friend of mine, Angel, have been on a lot of episodes, and I'm recording one with you and Mike, hopefully in a couple days.
Yep, absolutely. So be on the lookout for that. We'll definitely shout that out whenever we get it. So you guys will be able to go listen to me and Mike discuss 310 to Yuma with Mason here on his podcast, Bibliophobia.
Yeah, it's exciting.
All right. So you want to give us a Wimitanye out?
Wimitanye.
Wimitanye.
This has been a Rogue Media podcast.